guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Ken, and today we're here to talk about The First Omen.
Another, what do you call these? Witchy possession.
Religious horror, I think is what a lot of people would call this.
There we
religious horror. I always get religious horror, possession horror.
Yeah.
There's multiple names for this kind of horror, but
another one under our belts.
Yeah, another one under our belts. This one came out on Hulu.
It did.
This past weekend, and I imagine maybe if you're in Canada or overseas, like it's on Disney Plus, because a lot of other countries don't have it on Hulu. So it may have dropped on Disney Plus, which is kind of a weird place for The First Omen to drop. We're going to talk about The First Omen. Before we dive into our thoughts on it, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We do all kinds of fun movie and TV related content on this channel. And also,
like the video.
Like she said. And then if you watch The First Omen, whether it was in the theaters or on Hulu or Disney Plus, let us know your thoughts on it in that comments section below. Getting into our thoughts, I'll turn to you first. What did you think of The First Omen? A lot of people are saying this is a modern horror masterpiece.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I say this a lot whenever we review a horror movie, but I'm not the biggest horror fan, so I might not be, the one you want to come to if you want to know
the target audience.
If you want to know if a horror movie was good or not, I don't know. But I will say that, earlier this year we did see Immaculate, which was another similar movie, and so I feel like Immaculate, it fulfilled my needs for any type of what did you call this? Religious horror?
Religious horror involving nuns. They follow very similar beats for sure. I can see the comparisons.
So, I wasn't exactly excited to watch this movie, but like you said, it was on Hulu, so we checked it out. And overall, guys, I feel like I don't know what movie people were watching. Like you said, this movie was very hyped up, which, we have learned that when things are hyped up, usually, well, I don't want to say usually, but sometimes it's just not warranted.
Yeah.
And so
I don't know what the Rotten Tomatoes score is. I think it's in the 90s though. Like I think it's that high.
Well, even just going through my letterbox, seeing, my other fellow people that I follow, 4s, 4.5s, 5s even. But I gotta say, I don't know what movie these people watched.
Yeah. You know what? I enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
Okay.
I don't think it's the greatest, horror movie of all time. I feel like a lot of people are like hyping this one up like it's this year's Hereditary or something.
Right.
I will say with this movie, it didn't look good to me at all. Like the trailers did it no favors, and I started hearing it was good, and I'm like, oh, well, this one actually might be watchable. So I tried to keep my expectations tempered a little bit going into it. Mm-hmm. And I'd say for the most part, it delivered for me. It has the job of leading us into the First Omen movie from back in 1976, and I thought it did a pretty good job of blending those in pretty seamlessly. It kind of reminded me, honestly, of the Star Wars prequels, so with how seamlessly it kind of blended two together, the two universes, the old trilogy and the new trilogy, kind of bringing us in to that world, like right up to the point you even see a picture of Gregory Peck at the end of the movie. So
yeah, I mean, I don't have the most knowledge on the First Omen movies, but even not having that knowledge, I do feel like you said, this movie kind of just it made sense for the most part, even if you didn't have a ton of knowledge on the First Omen movies. But I don't know, for me, this movie, it had a lot of filler. I felt like it was, as you like to call it, a slow burn. I kind of hate that saying now, honestly. It kind of it's got a little bit of an ick to it for me, but it was a slow burn. I want to say that this movie did not really do me any favors until the last 30 to 15 minutes.
Yeah. There's
before
a lot
that, I was just very unimpressed.
And even in the last 30 to 15 minutes, a lot of the stuff that it's doing, it feels very derivative, which means it's coming from a lot of other horror films. You can tell this director, which I think her name is Arkasha Stevenson. Mm-hmm. She's seen a lot of horror movies. She's obviously a big fan of the genre. She's using she's just blatantly ripping off certain scenes. I pointed one out when we were watching it. I know you haven't seen the movie Possession, but there's a scene in this that's directly inspired from the movie Possession. I'm like, you just completely ripped that scene out, which there's nothing wrong with that, because I'm sure a lot of people haven't seen Possession, which they wouldn't know any better. But there's a couple of those throughout as well.
Yeah, and also I feel like this movie was very predictable. I mean, I was figuring out what is supposed to be a twist.
You're good at that though. You're really good at that.
I'm gonna take credit and agree with you on that one. But I was calling the big twist like way before. Like, to me, it just seemed very obvious.
Yeah, it was. We've just seen too many movies, I think, at this point. But yeah, I don't see how anybody, because even I, like you said it, but even I was kind of thinking it as well, like as we were going along. So I don't see how anybody, especially when you get to like the last 45 minutes right before it happens, didn't know it was going to happen or like saw it coming a mile away.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like overall as well, this movie wasn't very scary. Even like on parts that were supposed to be scary, they came across as almost comical.
Yeah.
And we won't get into those scenes because don't want to spoil it for you, but there are just some scenes that
there's a specific scene involving a torso.
Right.
We'll just say that felt like it was straight out of a spoof movie. To be honest. a
little bit. Now I will say that I don't consider this a spoiler because that this is about I guess the Antichrist and demons and devils and all that kind of stuff. It's about
the birth of Damien.
Right. And so, I will say that there is, if you're a little squeamish with birth, it might get you a little bit. I felt like
there's a pretty gnarly sequence.
Yeah. I feel like that scene was actually pretty well done. It looked very like realistic. Yeah. Again, I don't want to like give too much away, but when it came to the birth scene, I felt like that was pretty good,
there's also
scary,
a couple of decent jump scares, I think, where she's kind of in the room in the dark and something's in the corner, you can kind of see it and
that's
then kind of jumps out. There's some really good like disturbing sequences and imagery throughout. I think they do a good job of setting everything up and setting the world up and presenting the atmosphere to you and getting you wrapped up in it. At the end of the day, for me though, it still feels like a studio film. And what I mean by that, it just feels very by the numbers. Like everything's just orchestrated. You can see it coming. Like there's artistry to it, but it also feels like a bunch of people were making a bunch of decisions to make it like every other horror movie that came before it. Whereas when you watch a movie like Immaculate, which I did like quite a bit better, I know everybody's comparing them, that one felt like it had more freedom to kind of be and do what it wanted to do because it didn't have the baggage of that First Omen movie.
That's true.
So it just felt a little bit more original than this one did.
This movie, maybe this director did feel kind of the added pressure of kind of tying everything in a bow for us because like you said,
and to be clear, like
up.
I think she did a good job. Like if you really love the First Omen movie, like I think you'll like this movie a lot. I think she does a good job, an adequate job of blending those two worlds.
I mean, it's evident that people like this movie, so I don't know, I feel like we're definitely, well, I don't even know what your score's going to be, but I don't know. Again, you kind of reminded me of some of the more disturbing scenes or whatever. I know I said that it wasn't really scary. I think the problem was, though, again, these scenes that should have been scary weren't scary to me because they were so predictable. So I was just too busy like laughing at it to like really admire or enjoy the actual scenes that looked good.
Yeah. And there is a scene that they rip off straight up from the First Omen movie.
Right.
They just do it a little bit different. And before it happens, I'm like, I call out the line that she says. I'm not going to repeat it because I don't want to spoil it. And then she says it like 2 seconds after.
But, to be fair, I feel like when people are, like remaking or continuing, doing prequels or whatever, when they're making a movie on a franchise that already exists, I feel like they do like to tie in those little nods to the movies. Yeah. And so I think it can probably get a little tricky, a little...
But for me, because that's a huge moment in the first movie, and it's such an iconic moment. For me, it almost lessens that moment, because it's like, oh, somebody did that like 5 years before. Yeah. Like, it just doesn't make any sense why they would throw that in there. Yeah. At that point in time. Like, that moment feels so specific to that scene, and that in that moment at that party, it's like, why would somebody else say it 5 years sooner.
Right.
It's just kind of weird and just feels like it's thrown in there. That is what feels like a studio decision to me. We got to put the most iconic line in our movie in this movie to kind of tie it in for people.
Yeah. I mean, what about the performances? What did you think of the main actress?
I mean, the main actress, she was in, Nell Tiger Free, I think is her name.
We knew her actually from
The Servants.
The Servant, which was an Apple TV Plus show.
All
right, guys, so we're back. As you can tell, I don't know if Ken's in the same shirt or not, but I'm
in the same shirt because I never change. So.
Right. But I clearly am not. As you can tell, this is a different day. Unfortunately, when I was editing, I realized that we lost some sound more than halfway into our recording. So here we are picking up. And so that we don't have to refilm the whole entire thing again. So we apologize, but here we are. We're going to finish out this
If I repeat myself, I'm sorry, because I have trouble not repeating myself just in one video talking about a movie.
I'm going to bring us in, but so here we are. We're going to finish this First Omen review. So we were talking about performances. So what did you think about the main actress in the First Omen?
I thought she did really well. I mean, I liked her in the beginning on The Servants. And I thought she brought a lot of that, same type of energy here. I can see why they would cast her in the role.
Yeah.
They obviously had their eye on that show and knew who they wanted to get. So
yeah,
I thought she was good.
Yeah, I thought that she was fine. I don't feel like she really had to, really sell it to us until, the end.
Yeah.
Again, with the last 15 to 30 minutes.
That scene I was talking about off of where they kind of ripped it off of Possession. Like, she made it her own. Like, I could tell it was, a ripoff, but like she made it her own and she did a good job with it.
Yeah. So, I didn't think she was amazing or anything, but, I thought that she did fine. We also, have some other like well-known people in this movie. I know that we have the dad from The Witch.
Yeah, Ralph Ianson and Bill Nye is in this movie, which they're two notable actors. So
and then who's Bill Nye? Is that Game of Thrones?
No, that's Charles Dance. So
You're talking about the Pope.
There's a lot of old like prestigious.
You're talking
actors.
about the Pope.
The Pope. Yeah.
Okay, and then like I just said, there is a guy that's in the beginning from Game of Thrones. So
yeah.
And I'm trying to think.
Which is disappointing. Like, you got an actor like Charles Dance, and I'm not trying to spoil, but he's just not in the movie a lot.
Right.
He's just not in the movie a lot. And he should have been.
So, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like, again, I just felt like this movie, it was just very slow. And then, at the end, it picked up and it got my attention a little bit more and definitely, like, helped with my overall score that I'm going to give it. Helped bump it up a little bit.
It just didn't need to be 2 hours. It's like there's just no excuse for that behavior anymore from these studios. Like 2 hours for a horror movie. It's like horror movies. They're killing me. You should be in, you should be out, deliver some thrills and chills and all that kind of stuff. Hour and 30 minutes, hour and 35, hour and 40. There's some movies that call for it, the more epic horror films, but
right.
For the most part, just keep them at an hour and a half.
Yeah, I think we talked about this earlier in the review, but I think that they spent a lot of time trying to, like you said, set us up for when it ends, like where it picks up to the original First Omen or whatever you said. I again have no knowledge
Star
of
Wars prequels. That's what it was reminiscent of for me.
That's already in the review earlier today.
Okay,
so.
I'm repeating myself again.
You don't have to say that. I do remember that. But yeah, I don't know. All in all, I didn't hate this movie. I just I don't really care to see it ever again. For me, the rewatchable scale is very low, which a lot of movies aren't rewatchable for me personally. Yeah, you want to rate this?
Yeah, let's rate it. I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5. I thought it was good. Yeah. It's a decent movie. It just I think it justifies its existence, which is the main job of a prequel in my mind. Because you have to have a reason to exist. There's a lot of prequels that just don't, and that you can just tell they made them to make them. This one feels like it made them to make them. I guess what I meant. You could tell there was some genuine artistry behind this film, that the people behind it cared about what they were doing. So I enjoyed it on that level. I thought it was decent.
Okay, and I'm going to give it a 3.5 as well. I know it seems like I wasn't like very high on this movie. You'd probably think I was going to give it like a 2 or something. But overall, you know, it's not garbage by any means. And
No.
I think 3.5 is fair.
It's not the Nun 2 or the first Nun, to be honest. Like it's far better than those films.
Yeah.
So
a 3.5, you know, definitely worth checking out for sure. But again, it just didn't wow me like it seemed to have wowed a lot of the audiences out there. So
yeah.
But yeah, that's it.
But that's our review of The First Omen. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below if you're going to check this out on Hulu. Did you watch it in theaters? Let us know in the comment section below. Like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.